Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the fifth episode of the Katie Wheeler Accessibility Podcast. My name is Katie Wheeler, and I am your host for this show. In today's episode, I wanted to talk about a fun topic that is on everybody's mind right now, which is traveling with a disability. And so I figured I wanted to jump into that because we're getting into springtime where a lot of kids and college kids will be going off on spring break and so forth. And so I wanted to take time to give a few tips and tricks that I have figured out over the course of my life as somebody with mild to moderate CP who travels as a motorized wheelchair user to kind of offer that support as needed. And I am not an expert by any means. I've just figured out a system that works best for me. And as I often say in all of my content, my system and what works for me may not work for you and your family or your situation. So you just have to do what's best for you and your current situation. So with that being said, I am looking forward to some travel plans here in the next few weeks or months. And I wanted to jump in and give my, top 5 tips that I have come to find that works best for me. And the first and foremost tip that I have is to first and foremost consider your destination, the length of time you will be gone, the people, if you're going to be traveling independently or traveling with a companion or a colleague or significant other, family member, whatever, the way by which you travel, and the equipment that works best for you or your preferred equipment. And so all of those things are very, very important when we talk about traveling with a disability because our lives are difficult enough already without the added challenge of having our necessary medical equipment be lost, stolen, or destroyed within transit for a trip. And I think the first and foremost destination thing to consider is your destination and how long you're going to be gone for. Now, I will say going into this topic that no two disabilities and no two individuals are alike. Those with the same disability can have very different challenges and strengths and weaknesses. And so all these are individualized choices. These are just the choices that work best for me in my situation, right? And so for me, I think across the board, it's better for me to travel with my motorized wheelchair at least, 99% of the time because I have the highest amount of autonomy and the highest amount of independence when in my motorized wheelchair, right? I have the ability to navigate the world safely, confidently, and independently, right? Because, yes, I make that choice to travel with a companion or an assistant simply because, when you travel, the accommodations and things that you need to ensure your safety and independence that you have here at home may not be exactly the way you need them to be safe and independent, right? Because the moment we walk out that door, the world isn't made for us, right? So I often say in a lot of my content, a lot of my videos, a lot of my interviews that I've done with other channels, that we are, we're not disabled by our disabilities. We're disabled by how society views our disability and how they either don't set us up for success or set us up for success by having a concept known as universal design at the forefront, right? And so I think it's really important to consider your strengths and weaknesses and the people that are around you when you travel because, I'm lucky enough where I have people in my life that I can really trust, right? So I'm not always having to rely on my mom, for example, to travel with me. I have a couple people in my back pocket that I can call upon and they know how to help me, in the drop of a hat. Right, and all I have to do is say, they know how to treat me like a professional in the field, and so I really respect that. Yes, there have been some bumps along the way, but that's life, right? And so you have to really consider also how important traveling is for you with a disability. And having that assistant doesn't necessarily mean that you can't travel because of your disability, but it means, especially for somebody like me who does quite a bit of work on social media and is gaining quite a bit of following across all social media platforms. Thank you to those people, by the way. But it also means, with visibility comes extra precautions to be safe, right? It doesn't mean that I can't be independent. It doesn't mean that I can't travel, but I have to be extra precautious, right? And so, for me, that means traveling with a family member or friend. And that honestly gives me a little bit more peace of mind because, I often say that, I can only run as fast as my wheelchair will take me. And that's a very true statement, right? Because I can't walk. Yes, I can stand, but I can't walk. And so, to ask me to run away from somebody if I were to get into a situation whereby I had to defend myself, that's not realistic, right? And so for me, here's a couple things that I keep in mind. I keep in mind the destination that we're traveling to, the hotel accommodations that are available, my preferred medical equipment, which is, of course, my motorized wheelchair. Yes, I have a manual one, but I mostly prefer to be in my motorized wheelchair whenever possible. And so I also have my service dog, Indy, that always comes with me. I can think of, like, seriously one time when I went on a trip and he didn't go with us. And honestly, having him with me gives me that extra peace of mind, right? Because I know if need be, he can step in and not necessarily save the day, but be there if I need him. Because he's the person or dog that I can rely on the most, right? And so, but also having medical equipment that I really trust is really important to me. And so having motorized wheelchairs like the Quantum that I'm sitting in right now. This is not sponsored by them, by the way, but excuse me, if they would like to sponsor a future episode, I'd be more than happy to work with you guys. And so, having power wheelchairs like Quantums be there for me, it has just been a game changer, right? And so, and also having the confidence to travel on my own, regardless of my limitations. Not being afraid to communicate with people, not being afraid to be a voice for those who can't speak up for themselves. Not being afraid to, use my story to, in a positive way. Because as I mentioned in like yesterday's short, using your story for positivity on social media is a great thing. And bringing attention to the issues within our society, within our government, surrounding the disability community, that's fine. And so, using my story to create and impact change for those in the disability community, I'm all for it. And for me, if that means traveling with an assistant who I love and trust, I would rather do that than honestly travel on my own, because obviously I can't drive, so there's that. But it's not saying that I can't be independent, because I very much can, but it just means that I have to be a little more cautious with what I do in the public eye, right? And be aware that not everybody around me is a nice, good person. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Similarly, I really think it's really important to give shout outs to the, companies and brands that really, really make a positive impact on the disability community when it comes to travel. So I have been a Quantum Power wheelchair user for about 6 years, and this chair has been incredible. Yes, it has and is going through some challenges right now, but ultimately, it's given me the highest level of independence that I could have ever hoped to imagine. Having that extra confidence to be able to get out in the community and make an impact and do things and be independent, feel less like a burden on my family, has been wonderful, right? Secondly, I will say, part of traveling as someone with a disability, as a professional with a disability, means traveling and using respected hotel chains that not only have universal design in mind, but do everything in their power to make it safe for people with disabilities such as myself to travel. So things that I look for in a hotel room, right? So I require hotel rooms with 2 beds because I don't necessarily want to sleep with everybody that I'm traveling with, right? I require them to be fairly low to the ground, maybe not to the level of my current bed, but fairly low to the ground so I can safely transfer into them and get out of bed, in the middle of the night if I have to. I also request that door entrances be, meaning the doors as you enter the hotel room, be light enough for somebody in a power wheelchair or manual wheelchair to be able to open. And with that comes the ability to use the touch key card, meaning all you have to do is touch it to the little called sensor thingy, and it unlocks the door for you. You don't have to slide it in the door anymore. But ultimately, this is the biggest thing for me, right? And everybody has their preferences. But I really, really, really strongly emphasize the safety of accessible bathrooms. If they're not already, I strongly encourage the people who design those hotel rooms to make the floor surfaces safer for those of us with disabilities to transfer. Because as of right now, many hotel bathroom surfaces, when they get wet, are very, very dangerous for not only me as somebody with a disability to transfer without falling, but somebody who's ever helping me, right? Also, I emphasize that if you are traveling and you require the use of a shower chair, that you potentially bring your own shower chair with you, the one that you know works. And I'm not saying, bring your big bulky one with you, but if you have like a travel one that can be folded up, I strongly encourage you to bring that, because hotel chains are now making shower benches very, very slick and unsafe for people with disabilities to transfer onto when they're wet. So with that being said, with all these challenges, within the disability community, I really, really, really want to shout out a hotel chain that I really respect, and that is Courtyard by the Marriott. They are currently not sponsoring this episode, but if they would like to work with me in the future, I would greatly work with you. You guys have been amazing throughout all of the trips that we have been on, and I say that both as a corporate professional and traveling with my family. You guys have allowed us to make whatever accommodations we need within our room to make it as accessible for me as possible, and I really appreciate that. And so, yeah, I highly encourage you to check out Courtyard by the Marriott if you are looking to travel for business or pleasure. Secondly, I really want to emphasize and shout out a family member of mine, CJ Warner at Once Upon a Trip, who is a travel agent for specializing in people with disabilities and helping you travel and experience an amazing travel experience as somebody with a disability, putting all of your challenges aside. Thanks. Alright guys, that's the episode. If you have any questions, let me know.